Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Astros Baseball. We got a very special guest today, Jimmy from Astros Future. Jimmy, thanks for taking some time out of your day to come on the show.
Yeah, of course. I'll always appreciate y'all having me on.
So let me ask you this. I wanted to start with this. When was that when I met you? We went for Luke's birthday. I guess it was a couple seasons ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, it must have been maybe like 2 years ago. I think it's in July, right? Wasn't it
Yeah.
right around July 4th
Or
or something?
August.
Oh, maybe it's August. I don't know. But yeah, down in Corpus Christi.
Yeah, that was a good
Yep,
time.
yep. Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to bring that up later, folks. But
All right.
anyway, uh, I got 2 topics I wanna start with, but I kinda don't want them to combine into one topic, so let me start this. What do you think about them trading Kyle Tucker? What do you think about what they got for it? Overall, what's your thoughts about that?
I mean, you can always look at it and think, you know, you probably want more in return, right? You always want more in return. I mean, you probably get a couple top prospects and still feel like maybe we should have got a little bit more. But um, I think it hurt to see him go, but at the same time, I think we haven't had a prospect rated as high as Cam Smith in the system probably since maybe going back to I'm trying to think about it right now, but I mean you're looking at
Kyle Tucker?
Jordan Alvarez or Kyle Tucker. I mean,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
with someone that was rated that high. So getting a prospect like that, getting a pitcher that I think the Astros are going to be able to do something with, and then obviously Paredes, I think he's going to be a good player as well. So I think the return was good. It sucks to have to be in this position, and I understand it, but I think it was the right move. I think you gotta at a certain point you got to be willing to move on from these guys to make sure that you're getting something in return. I mean, we've lost Springer, we lost Cole. We lost Correa, and we got nothing in return. I mean, you got a comp pick, which is MLB draft is already hard enough to hit, and you're talking about trying to hit on a guy that's third or fourth round. So it's a burn to trade one of your best players. But I think moving forward, I think it was the right move.
I agree with you. I ended up liking the trade. I think the difference in the Kyle Tucker trade and these other guys that we had to keep is because we're in the World Series, we're in the ALCS. And I'm not sure that Jim Crane and the management thinks that this is like a World Series team, I guess. So, um, but also, I mean, they had to do something because I've said this all along. Alex Bregman was going to be so hard to replace, and they used Kyle Tucker to replace him. I mean, we got a very good third baseman that's probably going to be just as good. It's going to hit some home runs in the Crawford boxes, and then we have his replacement. So we replaced Alex Bregman for the next 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I'm with you. I think it was when you're a perennial World Series contender and you know you're going to be right there and you have an elite team. Maybe you don't move on from a guy, because you know that you're going to get that last year out of him, and maybe you resign him, maybe not. But I think in this situation, given the state of the farm system at the time, plus the major league roster, moving him was the right move. But yeah, I'm excited about Paredes. I'm really excited to see what he can do offensively. I think he's going to probably see an uptick in home runs thanks to the Crawford boxes, but you look at the last couple of years and his offensive production is pretty much on par with what Bregman was doing, if not even better. Obviously, Bregman's a gold glover over there, so you lose that. But offensively, I don't think you're going to lose much production there. And then you're right. You get a prospect like Cam Smith, and I don't know if he's going to end up at third base, or I've seen some reports talk about maybe he ends up in the outfield. He's a big guy, but either way, I mean, he's an elite level prospect, and like I said, a guy that the Astros haven't had in their system in quite some time.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, I'd rather have these two guys for the next 6 years than Bregman getting an 11-year deal playing at age 42. I like it. I'm pretty happy with it. But speaking of Bregman, so I'm thinking, all right, we're done with Bregman. He's out of the picture. I like what they did. I'm ready to move on, go sign some outfielders. And then all of a sudden, the Astros are back in on Bregman.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on what's going on right now with Bregman?
It kind of feels like a pipe dream, like almost like I don't know if it's going to happen. Like they bring it back in, but is it because he's not getting what he wants, and maybe they're offering? The reports are that the offer's still on the table, that 6 year 156. But are they floating the idea out there about kind of what the Twins did with Carlos Correa? Where you offer him a deal with an opt out, and it's kind of like, hey, no one gave you what you want, so we'll give you 2 years at this much, and we'll give you an opt out, and then he can opt out again, and maybe you bring him back for 1 year. But I do think a lot of it has to do with that competitive balance tax, and I think they want to stay below that threshold to not have to pay the fine, not to lose more picks. And um, I read today that they'd be willing to go over it if it's for a guy like Bregman. And I mean, I think if you had Bregman, I know people laugh at the idea of Altuve in left field, and I know
Yeah.
that sounds crazy to even think about, but just offensively, if you added Bregman to what you've already added with Paredes and Christian Walker, I mean, your offense 100% is going to be better than it was last year, I think, especially given the injuries that we had last year. But um, I don't really see it happening. I think it's a long shot, and I think it's one of those. He obviously didn't get what he wanted. I think all the top guys are gone. If he was gonna get that big deal he wanted, he would have already gotten it. So I think there's a chance that maybe they talked again because he hasn't gotten what he wants. But I have a hard time seeing it happen. But if you've got him for 6 years and yeah, it may push you into that next tax threshold, but I think you're going to have a quality. If you bring a guy like Bregman back, I think you're going to have a really good team next year. And I think some of those moves, like the Paredes and then Christian Walker, I think are they were kind of under the radar in terms of the big free agents. But like you look at a guy like Christian Walker, phenomenal defender, awesome at first base, and good good hitter as well. And we're going to see what he can do in the Crawford boxes and with some better protection in the lineup, maybe with Yoran Alvarez and some other guys. So. I'm excited about what the team is put together, honestly, even compared to where we were last year to this year. But yeah, if you can add Bregman to it, by all means, that'd be great. I don't really see it happening.
Yeah, the thing about the team, right? I love what they did, but we'll get this a little bit in a little bit after this. I think it might be right after it. Yeah, so we can kind of cruise into it. But I don't like our outfield at all. I don't like it at all. So it's
Yeah,
it's kind of weak. And if you look at our lineup, it's 1 through 6, and 7, 8, 9 is hit or miss. But you add Bregman in there, and it's 1 through 7, pretty strong. And but anyway, another sign that do you think they traded Presley just because they didn't want him, or because I think they're trying to free up cap space, maybe
yeah.
for Bregman. I don't know why they did it, but he didn't want to move. That's for sure. He's a Texas guy, and I guess he put that out there for the Cubs. Like, I'll waive it if I could be a closer.
Yeah.
So I think he was interested in being a closer again, but he didn't want to move.
Yeah, and I saw the report that said that the I think Dana Brown had said the relationship had been fractured with last year when they signed Josh Hader, and Presley kind of knew he was getting the bump from the closer role. But no, I mean I don't know. I think a lot of it had to do with the cap space. I think some of it has to do with I kind of thought last year at the deadline that they should have been sellers. I think the buildup, the look of the team just didn't look like a World Series caliber team, and he was a guy that I thought they may end up moving was Ryan Presley. It waited till this offseason. Yeah, the timing of it, you get one prospect back, you pay some of the salary. So I mean, it definitely looks like a salary dump. But the prospect they got back, I think he's a legit prospect. It's not just a random throw in at the bottom of the roster, but yeah, I think a lot of it had more to do with maybe the cap space, and then maybe just thinking he's kind of on his last leg. Maybe ready to put Brian Abreu in that eighth inning role. And we saw him have some ups and downs last year, and the few times it felt like he came in the ninth inning, he pitched well, and then he would struggle in the eighth. And I know that it's a mental thing a lot with these guys
Yeah,
too, but. Yeah, that one hurts because it's kind of think, man, if you have a good bullpen, you can usually go pretty far in the playoffs.
yeah.
But I do think they got some guys that can step in, and I know Dana Brown hit it at a few, but Caleb Ort, Forrest Whitley, like I expect those guys to Logan Van Wy, like I mean, they got some guys that I think are gonna be able to fit in that that sixth, seventh inning role, and then Abreu and Hader can finish it out.
Yeah, I believe that Presley makes 14 million, and the Astros are going to pay 5.5 million of that. Um, Forgot what I was going to say, but anyway, I think here it goes. I think when they brought in Hader last year, I think Hader having Presley there, maybe he had the feeling, if I don't meet standards, I got this other guy that's a closer right behind me, and then Presley's bothered by Hader because he's like, I'm the closer. I don't know what to do in the eighth inning. So I think both of them affected each other. And I think with Presley gone, I think Hader's going to be better.
Yeah, and I think Hader, we saw him have a couple rough outings early, and really after that, we saw the dominant Josh Hader, and the reason he got the 5 year, 95 million, I think it was contract. So, I mean, I think the back end of the bullpen is going to be great. Brian Abreu is clearly an elite bullpen arm. So you kind of got the eighth and ninth locked up. Now you're just looking to secure that sixth and seventh, and I think they got the guys to do it, and plenty of pitching prospects down on the farm too, and Abreu he was a minor league starter, and that eventually transitioned into relief, and we see what he does here. You got a guy like Miguel Ulola who's racking up strikeouts at a ridiculous rate in the minors. Maybe he's a guy that ends up taking a bullpen role initially. So I'm excited about the bullpen and seeing what they can do this year.
Yeah, strikeout guys are good in the bullpen. Just go in there and strike a couple guys out and
Yep.
go sit down. So I mentioned the outfield, right? And you got the people we have, and I don't think a lot of people are too excited about our outfield. But what outfield prospects do you think are going to come in and help the Astros?
Your top one's Jacob Melton that everyone's going to be counting on. Made it up to AAA last year. Numbers weren't crazy good, but they weren't bad either. He's kind of a guy that takes a little while to get going. He's got his swing is a little unique, but I think he's a guy that has a chance to make to make a the big league roster at some point this year. Maybe even out of camp, but if not, maybe towards the end of April if he has a really good April. But Jake Myers, phenomenal defender. I kind of look at him like the Jake Marisnick of the earlier Golden Era run, where maybe he's not going to give you a lot with the bat, but he's great defensively. Well, the difference then is your lineup was so damn deep that Marisnick could hit 212 and have a few homers, and you were okay with it because you had such a deep lineup. And now we're kind of counting on Jake Myers to actually provide something. So if you get the offensive production, McCormick's kind of the wild card, right? Is like we saw what he did in 22, 23, where he was, I mean, he was, what do you have? 20 homers, 20 stolen bases, hit 270 something. I mean, really, really good player. If he can get back to that level or even close to it, you're good with him in right field and Myers in center providing that defense. And then right now, left field's kind of the question: is are they going to sign somebody? Does Dubon play out there? Do they put Altuve out there if they sign somebody else, or does a guy like Jacob Melton, make an impact? There's a few other guys that could do it. Zach DeCenzo played a lot of left field this winter in winter ball. So I would probably look at those two, DeCenzo or maybe Melton, to be the guys that can come up and
Yeah.
provide a spark maybe for the club.
I saw a story about DeCenzo, and I think he's playing in Puerto Rico or some league, and that's where he's playing. He's trying to play different positions to make himself more valuable to the
Yeah,
Astros. So he's someone that I can see playing left field because they don't want Jordan playing left field for 162 games. So
right.
someone's got to do it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. No, and I think he'd be a good one to throw out there. He looked pretty good in his offensive opportunities last year, so I'd like to see what he could do, in a full time role.
Yeah, spring training should be pretty interesting.
Yeah,
You,
yeah, no,
you,
it always
usually,
is when there's openings.
yeah, yeah. There was a few years. It's like, well, I mean, we all know who's going to make it. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
maybe there's one bullpen spot that's
Right.
up for grabs. But speaking of prospects, which prospects are you the most excited about?
All right. Let's see. So outside of the obvious, like Cam Smith,
Yeah,
like I can't wait to see what he can do.
me
Like
too.
he came in following the draft, and we see a lot of guys struggle following the draft. Even the top prospects. Go look at I'm blanking on the name. The guy out of Georgia that went to Colorado. Blanking on his name. Had a ton of home runs last year in college baseball. Anyways, I can't think of his name, but he went immediately into minor league baseball and he really struggled. And there's a lot of them that do. I mean, I think
Yeah,
some of the top picks, and Cam Smith came in and played across three levels and hit like 324 with 7 homers. I mean, he looked great.
yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what that he could do. I think he'll probably start the year off in Double A, and you could force his way onto the roster at some point. If it's not at third base, it's going to be somewhere. They'll find a place for him if he's hitting. But you take away him. I think there's a few of the lower level guys. The Astros have some young guys last year that got to debut in single A, like a Chase Jaworski and Nail Marachoa. Those are a couple real young teenagers that had some promise last year, showed some promise. But Bryce Matthews, I think he's kind of slept on too. I mean, local Houston guy, had 15 homers, I think 30 stolen bases last year. It showed off the power speed. Strikeouts were a little bit there, but that didn't stop him from doing his damage. And he made it up to AAA. Got to play with the big or the AAA club as they won the AAA national championship. So excited to see what he can do and he's another guy that I think the Astros could experiment with, kind of playing around the field. They already have a little bit. They played him at shortstop, obviously third base, and I think he got some run at second base too. Um, so yeah, not to go with the obvious guys of Cam Smith and Bryce Matthews, but I do
Yeah.
think there's some hidden talent like a Kenny Gomez. He had a really good year last year as a teenager in Single A, made it up to High A and finished strong. He got a pretty good bonus a while back, on the international side. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that I'm really looking forward to, and then a ton of pitchers. I mean, the Astros have done well drafted pitching, and they got a few last year that are looking great. Ethan Pecco, Jackson Nezu, like just striking guys out left and right. And I mean, Ethan Pecco, first year in the Astros system, and he won the minor league pitcher of the year. So
Wow. Yeah, that was the next topic, the pitching prospects. But
yeah,
some of the prospects, like I'm excited about Cam Smith. And if people listening, I know you said it already, but if people listening don't know this, the kid went from the draft to A to high A and double A, and he did awesome. I mean, it's not like
yeah,
he played the whole year and ended up in double A. The guy played like 30 games, 23, 25. I don't know how many.
yeah,
It wasn't that many.
right.
So that's really good. So I'm excited about him.
Oh yeah,
And one name that I heard, I think it was last year or the year before, was Luis Baez, a big, powerful outfielder. And I'm kind of like waiting to see what happens with this guy too.
yeah, yeah. He made it up to Double A this year. He played in Asheville and then made it up to Corpus Christi, and he's probably got some things to work on in terms of he doesn't walk a ton. He's got some swing and miss, but you're right, big power. But I think he was playing last year at 20 years old, so it's not like there's no need to rush him. So
Yeah.
he'll probably start out the year in Double A, and I'm really excited to see what he can do and see if he can kind of refine that approach a little bit to maybe draw some walks and cut down on the strikeouts. But a ton of potential. I mean, he's in the Astros top 5 prospects probably, and when you're looking at the ceiling of some of these guys, he's definitely on the high ceiling guy.
Yeah. And then Pedro Leon. This is a guy that center fielder, and then they were playing him at shortstop. It looks like
Yeah.
they were trying to put him somewhere that they could bring him up, but I mean, it's been like 3 seasons that we're expecting this guy to come up, and he just he never has.
Yeah, he's kind of he at this point he is what he is. I think he's got power, he's got speed, but he's going to strike out a lot. Little erratic maybe sometimes in the field, but he kind of strikes me as a guy that could maybe fit in like a Jose Siri type role, where like if he gets an opportunity and he can get hot, like he can hit some homers. I mean, he hits some. I mean, when he gets a hold of it, he hits it deep. He's got some legit power and really
Yeah.
good speed. But he's just going to need that opportunity. But maybe he fits in a role where he's a fourth or fifth outfielder, and you can bring him in, to steal some bases and have him some pitch hits. Where yeah, he's going to strike out some, but he's gonna get into some homers too. But a lot of talent there. But I think him being this top prospect that he was lauded to be, talent for sure is there. But I think his ceiling is just kind of, or at this point, maybe you should say his floor is a little lower than we thought, just given the swing and miss, and then kind of what we saw from him defensively a little bit last year.
All right, the next topic was pitching prospects, if you wanna add anything else to
Sure.
it. But, before that, I grew up with this woman, or I guess she was a girl, now she's a 53-year-old lady, but her son is in the Astros organization, Rhett Koba,
Oh
and
yeah.
that dude was really good, but he dealt with some, injuries last year, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a very big dude, but he's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was real high on Rhett. I had a couple opportunities to talk with them when I was down in Fayetteville, and I think in Corpus Christi as well. Yeah, the injuries kind of held him back. He'll have another opportunity this year in AAA, just like some of these other guys have. So you talk about pitching prospects, and you look at Colton Gordon, Ryan Gusto, AJ Blueball, like all. I mean, that was like a three-headed monster in AAA, and I keep referring to that team because that team, they won the PCL title, they won the AAA national championship, but they pitched in some really tough parks. You're talking about like Las Vegas, um, where else? Albuquerque, and I know there's a few in California that they pitch it,
Bunch
but
of
they pitched in some.
offensive friendly
Yeah, I mean,
parks.
just parks where the balls are flying, and
Yeah,
and they all had ERAs under 3. I think they all, except for Gusto, may have had more strikeouts than innings pitched. I think Gusto was like 141 strikeouts and 144 innings, but all pitched really well. Gusto was supposed to start the last game of the season, and I think it
yeah,
got uh, canceled due to rain. But they may not have the ceiling of these guys coming up that or the hype that maybe see these guys coming up. But like all three of them strike me as guys that can come up and eat innings in the fourth or fifth starter role when inevitably you're going to have some injuries. And I think those guys are going to get an opportunity this year to get some spot starts, and it'll really just be who's going to make the most of them. Who's going to come in and I mean, you look at a guy like JP France. His rookie year when he came up early in his career, he got an opportunity and he kind of made the most of it. And then unfortunately, he's dealt with some of the injuries, but it's all about making the best of your opportunity. And I think I could see all three of those guys getting an opportunity at some point this year to
Yeah.
get some starts on the major league roster.
Yeah, I don't even think Spencer Arrighetti was supposed to be doing what he did last year, but injuries made him go up, and
Yeah.
he struggled at the beginning, and at the end, I mean, his ERA in his last, like, 26 games was, like, 3.
Oh yeah, no, I mean he hit his stride, and you saw what made him one of the better prospects in the system. And looking at a guy like him and Hunter Brown kind of anchoring your rotation is pretty exciting. Moving forward.
Yeah, because this will be more than likely the last season with Framber Valdez, so
Right.
Hunter Brown and Spencer Arrighetti be the 1-2 punch if
Yep.
Lance McCullers ever pitches again. He's
Yeah.
supposed to, but, it's been a
Yep.
while.
Yep. For sure.
So Sugarland won the AAA championship last year. You just mentioned that. And, being the Astros podcast guy at work, people's always asking me questions like, why do they think our farm club sucks and we won the AAA championship? So I know last year, I guess we were ranked 28, 29, which is pretty bad, 29 out of 30.
Yeah.
And I believe I saw that we're number 19 now.
There's been some updates. Yeah, it depends on who you're reading. I think it was Blue to Report that maybe had us 19, but I mean the addition of Cam Smith helped. The
Yeah.
draft helped. I think people liked what the Astros did in the draft, despite not having a second round pick either, thanks to the Josh Hader signing. But yeah, I mean I think it's um, they've added some through guys like Cam Smith, and then the development of some of these guys I think has kind of got that system a little bit higher ranked. But really, the AAA national championship, or the AAA team in general, I should say, it was led by some really good prospects. In terms of like a Zach DeZenzo or a Shea Whitcomb, and even a Pedro Leon, and then the pitchers I just talked about. But then they also had some good guys that really helped. They had Wander Suero, who was a 30-something-year-old closer who was just lights out. They had Cooper Hummel, who played a lot of catcher, first base, DH, and was kind of a veteran in the clubhouse. They had Jesus Bastidas, who they got from the Yankees minor league deal, and he played really well. So like they had guys that weren't top prospects that helped carry them to the AAA championship, but they got contributions all over. And I think there's a lot to everyone, I mean, you always want that 21, 22-year-old to come up, or 20-year-old in the Carlos Correa's case, to come up and be a rookie of the year and be this next bright star. But there's a lot to be said to getting guys like the 2022 or 23 version of Chas McCormick, guys who were, I forgot when he was 16th round or whatever he was, way deep in the draft. And he comes up and he gives you good production. And, he was never a top prospect, and he put up one of the better seasons, and probably in the outfield that year. Like I said, hitting 270, 20 homers. Like that's how you win right there. Everyone wants the top prospects, and the Astros have a few of them. But if you can't develop those guys, and if you can't get contributions out of those other guys, you're gonna have a hard time building a solid team. And I think that's what the Astros have done, is gotten contributions. I mean, you look at a DeZenzo or even a Shea Whitcomb, like those guys are probably going to contribute to a major league team. Hopefully the Astros, but
Yeah.
they're going to continue to get opportunities. And I think there's just a lot that goes into the development side that maybe doesn't reflect in the rankings, and I think that's kind of what we've seen on the Astros. But yeah, it was funny when I was in AAA last year when they won it. But I don't know why my memory's bad right now, but I'm blanking on her name. But she writes for the Chronicle, and she was asking about a lot of these guys about, oh, what do you think about the Astro system being? And they were pretty blunt. And I mean, part of my language, if you don't mind me cussing, but some of them were like, that's fucking bullshit. Like that they were ranked that bad. I mean, it was, like I think it's stupid. Like screw those guys that rank us. They don't know what they're talking. Like they were upset that the Astros farm system was getting, because they think it's ridiculous that their farm system is rated low and everyone thinks they got no prospects, but yet we're still
Yeah.
funneling talent. And
Yeah.
I think it's just, when you're ranking the system, they're ranking it off potential and they're looking at the top guys. That's why, the Cubs now are going to have a top system. I mean, they got a top system, and the Astros have one top 100 prospect, and that's Cam Smith. But yet they still find ways to get contributions. Arrighetti was, I don't know if he was ever a top 100 prospect, and we saw what he did last year. So
Yeah. I know he was somebody that was excelling in minor league ball, and we were excited about him. We
Yeah.
just didn't think we were gonna get him that quick.
Even Yonder Diaz. I mean, I think maybe Baseball Prospectus had him in the top 100 like the year before he came up, but no one else did, and we're seeing what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's people you never heard of just come up and contribute to you,
Yeah.
in the major leagues. So what do you think the outlook is for the Astros in 2025? I mean, I would assume that somebody they would have to sign some outfielder. Maybe not. Maybe it's Melton. Maybe it's DeCenzo. But what do you think? What is your outlook for the Astros? Another AL West title? Probably not a World Series because the Dodgers buy everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably want to add a veteran outfielder. I mean, they added a couple of them last year. Through the minor league deals or whatever. Ben Gamble, Jason Hayward. I
Yeah,
could see them trying to add a veteran outfielder, but I mean, you look at the AL West, and the Mariners are not a terrible team, but they're not great. The Rangers were not very good last year, and they got some guys healthy this year, but they're predicated on health, and they got some guys that are injury prone. Jacob Degrom. I mean, they're hoping he stays healthy, but we'll see. So I think the moves that they've made, like we talked about earlier with Christian Walker and Paredes, and then I think there's an opportunity for them to continue to win and maybe get the AL West title. And then at that point, it's just getting hot. It's can Framber be the Framber we saw in the 22 World Series? Can do you get Garcia back by that point? Or these other guys. It's so hard to keep up with the injuries with Javier McCullers, but are any of those guys back? And then are Hunter Brown and Arrighetti ready for the? I mean, if you get
yeah,
hot in the playoffs, and we saw it, right? We've seen teams that they didn't win 110 games to win the playoffs. We've seen teams that win 89 games and go deep. So
yeah.
really, it's get to the dance and then hope you get hot and hope the bats get hot. But I think they've done enough, adding Paredes and Walker to make sure the offense will be solid. And then you're hoping some more regression, positive regression from guys like Arrighetti and Brown. And then even Wesneski, who they got, that I think they can turn into a pretty good pitcher. And he had some good numbers for Chicago too. But I'm very excited to see what the Astros staff can do with him.
Yeah. Yeah, if we have a starter, he can be in the bullpen. He does either one, so
Yeah,
I think it's pretty good pickup. The way I feel about the Astros too, I think they're missing a piece, but the piece could already be in their system, and people could contribute that you don't know. We already said that earlier. I mean, you got to have that mindset. I mean, they're just too talented to not think that they're not going to at least win the division and make the playoffs.
yeah. I don't.
With
My guess would be no one in that clubhouse is thinking, like, oh, we're not a good team. We're not going to make the playoff. Like I think they know they got the talent to go out there and win
yeah,
the AL West again.
yeah. Last year was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, when are they going to turn it around?
Yeah, I mean, it took a long time, and they did it like just in the nick of time. I mean, they did it. I mean, really, you look at a couple weeks before that deadline. If they were continue to struggle, maybe they don't trade for Kikuchi. And then
Yeah,
obviously Kikuchi helped propel us to the playoffs.
yeah.
But yeah,
That was a good
hopefully they
pickup.
got to get off to a good start.
That was a good trade.
Yeah,
Everybody was like, "What'd they get that guy for? He's got a 6.0 ERA." And
yeah.
then
No, I mean, and I hated to. I hope we couldn't have re-signed him. Obviously, he got a good deal, and
yeah.
happy for him to get that. But yeah, I mean, he was phenomenal in an Astros uniform.
Yeah. All right, so that time I did meet you, you were in Corpus and you said you were able to visit, and you might do it every year, I don't know, but you're able to visit all 4 of our minor league stadiums, what was it? Fayetteville, Asheville, Corpus, and Sugarland.
Yep.
And I think I might have asked you this before, but I'm gonna ask you again. Which is your favorite stadium?
Ooh, first one the first one that comes to mind because I really like them all, but first one that comes to mind is Fayetteville. It was built in I think 2019, so it's a single A park, but when you get there, it doesn't feel like it. I mean, it's a beautiful park. They do a really good job, like social media. I mean, they promote it well. There's a train that runs behind it. Great places to eat, a bar out in the right field. I mean, it's a really really nice park. And I mean, I think they do really well marketing everything. Asheville is cool in terms of it being so freaking old. I mean, I think it was built in 1917 or
Oh,
1920 or something. It's
wow.
it's a 100-year-old park. They're doing a lot of renovations right now, and I'm thinking they'll be done by April, I hope. But I'm excited to see kind of what they've done. Corpus Christi, love the view. You got the bridge behind it. Being right there on the coast. The hardest part about going there is like it's so
Ye
hard for left-handed hitters to hit because like the wind blows in so hard from right field. And then obviously just how freaking humid it is in the
Yeah.
summer. But and then Sugar Land's nice too. But yeah, if I had to choose my favorite, I would probably say Fayetteville. I love my trips to North Carolina, and my time in Fayetteville is great. Media relations radio guy Andrew Chapman is awesome. And yeah, I always have a good time when I go down there.
So that I mean, you talked about I guess you flew over there and then you drove from one to the other and you
Yep,
were talking about these amazing views. So if you guys ever wanna do this Fayetteville, Asheville thing, what are they, like, 4 hours apart?
4 hours. Yeah, about 4 hours. Yep.
And it's just a beautiful mountainous
Yeah, I mean,
drive,
it's
right?
like I mean, I live in the Houston area, so like it's all flat, right? So getting out to North Carolina and being able to see some mountains or whatever, I mean, it's nice, but no, I mean, North Carolina's beautiful state, a lot of minor league baseball. Asheville's really out there close to Tennessee, and then Fayetteville's a lot closer to the coast. So,
Mm.
but yeah, 4 hours apart. I usually spend a couple nights in both, and yeah, it's always a trip I look forward to, and hopefully I'll be able to go again this year.
So out of all the, interviews you've done, I don't know if you do a whole lot of them, but I'm sure you
I do. Well, a lot of them I do for articles, not always like, some of them are podcasts, but a lot
yeah,
of them, like when I go to the Asheville and Fayetteville for sure, I usually try to talk to probably two or three players at each stop, and so I can ride on them. But
yeah.
yeah.
So who is your favorite person that you've interviewed that you were
Uh,
just like, "Man, that was fun talking to that
yeah,
guy."
first one I could think of was probably Spencer Arrighetti.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
when I talked to him in Asheville back in 2000, I guess it was probably 22, maybe. I think it was 22. And yeah, I mean, he was great. Extremely insightful, very smart when it comes to like the nuances of pitching. But gave me some very like honest and truthful answers. Didn't give me the canned answers on a lot of things when we talked about his college time and his time in the Astros system. So yeah, Spencer was great. Um, let's see who else. Gosh, I'm trying to think of just even who I talked to last year.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, let's see. When I was in Fayetteville, I talked with Chase Jaworski, Nail Marachoa. Um, I talked with Jackson Nazu. He was a good one too. Bryce Matthews was good, but yeah, like Spencer Arrighetti for sure is like the one that pops in my head, and I'm like, yeah, he was a good one. He was
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah, I did some interviews a long time ago when I wasn't very good at this, and I talked to Kyle Tucker and who's that guy that went to the Indians?
Miles
Or now
Straw.
the Yeah, Miles
Yeah.
Straw, and then the catcher that went to the Angels. See, I'm losing all their names too. Man, what's that? He was like Mr. He won the Johnny Bench Award.
um,
He's a little guy. He's a catcher, but he's a little guy.
oh, Garrett Stubbs.
Garrett Stubbs
Yeah, yeah.
and the guy from here, the guy from San Antonio,
Forrest Willie.
Forrest Whitley. I
There you
talked to
go.
those 4 guys. That's about the only time I've ever interviewed anyone
Yeah,
at a ballpark. But on here, my favorite guy to talk to is Bob Ford.
yeah.
I smiled the entire time I talked to him. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But anyway, that's all I have. That was my last question. Your favorite
Cool.
interview. We're 33 minutes into it. My goal was about 30.
Perfect.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, to share. I mean, right now on the website, astrosfuture.com, I'm doing top three prospects at each position. So I've done catcher, first and second. Third base will be next week. I also have a weekly new. Well, I say a weekly, sometimes weekly, sometimes more often than that newsletter on Substack. So you can find that Substack Astros Future. And I just post a newsletter about why I think the Astros farm system is underrated and has a lot of potential. But then during the season, I'm doing weekly hot list, talking about the top prospects and who's been hot in the Astro system for that week. But that's really what's going on the site, and then obviously on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, all at Astros Future.
And let me tell you guys, if you don't follow Jimmy, Astros Future, this guy does such a phenomenal job with the minor leagues that the minor league players themselves talked about each other. Hey, you were on Astros Future. Like it's a big deal for them, and he does such a great job. And I know everyone that loves the prospects in the minor leagues, and me, of course. I appreciate all the work you do. You
Appreciate it.
know, allowing us to know these people without having to do the research. You do it all for us. We know all the people coming up, and you do a great job. And I appreciate you coming on today, buddy.
Yeah, always, man. Appreciate it.
All right, for Jimmy, I'm your host, Rob Fontenot, and we'll see you next time on Astros Baseball.